In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. We want to begin this evening. Mr. Sanders has graciously agreed to give us a brief presentation on the four causes, according to Aristotle. And that's going to be crucial for the understanding of the classical Greek philosophical approach to the study of ethics, axiology, or the moral life. Remember the three parts, huh? Metaphysics, ontology, or first philosophy, that's number one. Number two is epistemology, the study of knowledge. And number three is axiology, or the study of ethics. And it is referred to as virtue ethics, which is absolutely crucial. And in the last several decades, virtue ethics has made an incredible comeback in both theology and philosophy. And I'm going to ask you for next week, but we'll get into it, to read the section in the Catechism on the acquired virtues, the infused virtues, as well as the gifts and the fruits of the Holy Spirit, because they're all together and treated extensively in the Catechism in terms of the moral life. So as Mr. Sanders presents the four causes, we are then going to give you two cases having to do with their applicability. Because you can sit there and say, well, what does all this have to do with anything? I understand that. But it has a lot to do with everything, if you intend on being a human being, and also to understanding the basic fundamentals of metaphysics. And also, it's if you don't understand it philosophically, the first three chapters of Genesis make no sense at all. They make no sense, and it's just one among many myths, stories, fables, whatever you want to call it, with other religions, etc. So these four causes, while in the beginning may seem abstract, so you have to just hang tight with them for right now, and then we'll give you two examples, two situations in which we will apply these four causes, especially the second example, in terms of the living of the moral life. Because for Socrates especially, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, the moral life comes down to the virtues, intellectual and moral virtues. This will be built upon by Augustine and Aquinas. That is the acquired virtues, or the cardinal virtues. They will be built upon in terms of the theological virtues, and then one step higher is the fruits and gifts of the Holy Spirit, which we will have to look at for St. Paul to come up with that. But these things are connected and into the Catechism, and today one of the leading schools of ethical or moral living centers now around the kind of renaissance, rebirth, recovery of the importance of what's called now virtue ethics. And for a long time, it has given way to several other schools of ethical thought, especially in the modern period, that we'll talk about: utilitarianism, formalism, things like that. But ultimately, our grounding, the Catechism, the Catholic moral tradition, and in Greek philosophy, especially beginning with Socrates, is the importance of living a virtuous life. And we haven't said what virtue is. We haven't said anything about that. And there are classifications of the virtues. And what is their relationship to character? What is a character? What is character? What does that mean? Etc. remember once upon a time, when you had the sacraments, we talked about an indelible character being placed upon the soul, like when you became a priest. An indelible character. An indelible character when you received the sacrament of baptism and the sacrament of confirmation. Why? Because you only received it one time. You only received it one time. You didn't get baptized 10 times. That's why people who come from another religion, another strand of the Christian tradition, they don't get rebaptized. They're not rebaptized. They're already baptized if they're in the Christian tradition. We do not rebaptize a Methodist or an Episcopalian or a Lutheran or any of those religions because they've already been baptized. We don't reconfirm them. We don't do that. And these marks stay, even when a priest is returned to the clerical state. He can do that by petition or by excommunication. Priests, for example, who were engaged in sex abuse, they are returned to the lay state. That is, it's not simply the removal of faculties. They can no longer function or even be considered in the order of priest or cleric, commonly referred to, unfortunately, by an awful word. They're defrocked. That is, they are stripped of that which they had received. However, the mark remains. It is an indelible mark. It is a character. And character comes from the Latin cadre, which means an engraving. It's an engraving. When you go to the jeweler and you put, "Oh, sweetie, I love you forever," however long ever is. Well, you don't put that in there. But you put that there. Well, that's permanent. It's there. It's that mark. That's what a mark is. And when you receive those sacraments, there is a mark of which its function can be removed. Its status can be removed. But the mark itself cannot be removed. Once a priest, always a priest, in the indelible mark of the sacrament, not in its function or utility. That is a canonical issue. In other words, you can no longer function as a priest or a nun or whatever it might be, the vows you take, etc. So anyway, while this may seem abstract in the beginning, if you just hang with it and just try to comprehend it, it's not complicated. You will see that this is crucial as we continue to develop. So, and I want to thank Mr. Sanders for his generous willingness to volunteer to do this. And so I thank him, and Mr. Sanders. Thank you.
Hey, fun. I'm James Sanders, and in our last meeting, I was voluntold. I'm a volunteer. He gave a presentation on Aristotle's Four Causes. And I was reminded this morning at church that I was not turning it back tonight. It reminded me of a joke I got on July 3rd on the internet. It showed Thomas Jefferson. He was sitting down July 3rd, 1776. He was looking at his calendar. He saw a reminder. Report due tomorrow. I was like, oh, okay. So here I am giving my report. I will agree with Father that it is kind of abstract. The more I played with it, I could see the pattern, but being a novice, it takes a while. And I'm going to give a couple examples that hopefully will drive home at the four Christ. Before we get going, I would personally like to thank Father for they teach the class, the homilies at church, everyone I talk to enjoys it. And how about you so far?
You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of two things. The guy comes up to Jesus, and he says, "Oh, good teacher." Already you know that whatever he's got to say is no good. You know that. Jesus says, "Why do you call me good? There's only one who's good, God." And secondly, when you get a term paper at the end of the term, and it's beautifully typed, it's put in one of these nice binders and everything else like that, you can be sure inside is terrible. You know what I mean? But no, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
I lost the 3x5 card you gave me, but I think I said
No, I'm not Joe Biden. Come on.
Hold on.
Yes, you're going to need it. That's true. You want to go over the part about music?
If this is the neat binder, my daughter did this for me, okay, before I came here. Okay. And I gave y'all a cheat sheet so you can follow along. Grab one and pass it around. Okay. As we all know, Aristotle was an ancient Greek philosopher, and one of his most enduring contributions to metaphysics is his doctrine of the four causes. Having sat where you are, but I've been elevated to assistant professor, first thing I would ask is, what the heck is metaphysics? And in its simplest form, metaphysics is the study of how things came to be and what caused them. So if you want to write that down. Metaphysics is the study of how things came to be and what caused them. This notion of cause belongs to metaphysics when it is understood as the thing that is responsible for a thing coming into being, or existing and passing away. So it belongs to metaphysics when it is understood as to the thing that is responsible for a thing coming into being. And Aristotle believed four causes constituted every being. For Aristotle, when we ask a why question about a being, we are asking about its cause. We do not know about a thing until we are able to give an explanation that answers the why question. Aristotle's doctrine of the four causes asserts that we can give four kinds of explanatory answers to the why questions of that being. So every being can be explained with the four causes. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples that we'll go through. Again, it's kind of abstract when you hear that, but hopefully these examples will bring it home. So I'm going to talk about the four causes, as you can see in your cheat sheet: the material cause, the formal cause, the efficient cause, and the final cause. And then I'm going to give an example to drive that home. And the example is going to be based on a wooden kitchen table. Okay? So, the material cause is the material of which a thing is made. The stuff we can see, touch, and taste. As an example, the wooden kitchen table is made of, okay, good. Therefore, the wood is the, all right. Easy, right? Okay. The formal cause. The formal cause is the structure or design of a being, sometimes referred to as the blueprint or the plan. Again, the formal cause is the structure or design of the being, sometimes referred to as the blueprint or the plan. It's what makes the object one thing and not the other. So again, going back to our wooden table, the original carpenter could have used the wood, which is the material cause, the wood. He could use the wood and made a chair, but he didn't. According to Aristotle, the carpenter's plan or design or the blueprint was putting the wood together in such a way for a table. Hence, the carpenter's design is the formal cause. His blueprint to make the table was the formal cause. Okay? The efficient cause. This is the thing or the agent or the process which actually brings something about. It is not what it is made of, which is the material cause, or the plan of how to make it, which is the good. It is the actual force that brings something into being. Okay, just like Father said, it's abstract, but hopefully the example will make it come to light. Again, using the kitchen table, it's the swinging of the hammer and the sawing of the wood that brings the table into being. Who does this? Who swings and saws? There you go. So the carpenter is the efficient cause. The final cause. The final cause is the ultimate purpose for the being. So the example in this case of the table, the final cause is that it gives you and your family something to eat upon, something to do homework, or play cards. Okay, so the final cause is the ultimate purpose for its being. Okay, so tonight Cindy goes home and Cindy wants to make some oatmeal cookies. Let's put the cookies through the four causes. Okay. In this case, what would be the material cause, Jim? Okay, it would be the ingredients, the flour, the sugar, the oatmeal, okay? Now, you can probably use all of those things and make a toffee, but she's making oatmeal cookies, right? Okay. In this case, Cindy, what is the formal cause? Remember, it's the blueprint. And let me give you a hint. If Cindy did not know how to make them by heart, she would open up, oh, you beat me to it. She would open up a cookbook and get the recipe, the blueprint on how to make the cookies. Why? Extra points for you. Okay, so the recipe would be the formal cause. It's the plan, it's the blueprint. Next, we have the efficient cause. Now remember, the carpenter was the efficient cause. He took the ingredients and used the recipe and made the table. In this case, who was taking the ingredients and putting it together to make a cookie? Cindy is the efficient cause. Okay? And the last one's easy. the final cause, which is the ultimate purpose of the cookie, and that is to eat it. Okay? So Aristotle said that every object, every being, the why question can be answered by using the four causes. Thank you. It's all yours. Thank you. Yes, sir. I'll be right over here.
You want to be the efficient cause, the formal? I want to not only thank Mr. Sanders. I think the example and the way in which you expressed it was very well done, very well done. And I think we have a very good idea in talking about this, from cookies to tables to anything. We're talking about metaphysics because it is the discussion of the nature of reality itself in its most basic and fundamental sense. That which comes into existence, that which has being, that which is. But we don't simply want to know that it is. We want to know what it is. What is it for? Who made it? You may very well do that, for example, when you look at a piece of jewelry, or a dress, or a suit, or something like that. One of the questions you may ask is, well, who made that? Who designed it? Who designed it? You're asking for what cause? Don't go silent on me now. What? Formal cause, yes, formal cause. That's what when you ask, you say, well, oh, that's beautiful. Who made that? Oh, that's very attractive. Oh, gee, that would look good on me, or something like that. You're asking for that. You're also asking for what cause? No. Very good. For the efficient cause. Oh, that's beautiful. You're asking, who made that? Who designed that? Etc. Otherwise, it's nice, it's good. See, without knowing causality, what we have is we don't have an understanding. What you have is a description. See, for example, if I ask you to come in here and look through a microscope and say, what is this you're looking at? And you don't have a clue. You've never had biology. You've never had any of that. You know absolutely nothing. I say, well, come on, tell me what you see. What is that? Well, you immediately go into description. Or something blue and kind of wiggly, and it has little things coming. Notice I'm giving you a description. I'm not giving you a definition. Why? Because I don't know what it is. I can describe it sensually, but I can't give you a definition. And I say, oh, it's a streptococcus or something or another, whatever it is, some bacteria or something. Because I not only am able to describe it and to recognize it when I see it, I'm also able to put a tag on it. I'm able to put a name on it. And if I can put a name on it, I have a better understanding of perhaps controlling it and understanding it. So if I understand that what you're infected with is some strain of, let's say, the strep throat, or streptococcus, or something like that. And my goal is, as a physician, is what? What is my goal in looking at that and diagnosing it that you have a streptococcus? What is my goal as a doctor? Exactly. That's what I want to do. If all I can do is describe, well, this little wiggly thing is doing this and that, it could be many things, many, many, many things. But when I have that, and my final end is to eliminate that particular bacteria, and what is the means that I use? Antibiotics, the right antibiotics. And that's more, at times, more of an art than a science. Because two people do not react the same way to the same medicine. Or maybe it's reacting differently to that person. So they may give you what they call a universal spectrum. And trying to now, now, you say, well, they misdiagnosed. Yes, but a misdiagnosis, for example, is an advancement in knowledge, because that's something you have eliminated and you don't have to waste time with that. So it's not a complete failure. Oh, the doctor misdiagnosed this. Well, he didn't do it on purpose, we're assuming. Okay? It could also be an abnormality with you or with that particular strain. It may be in the stages of a mutation. We don't know that. But we do know that if you give people enough antibiotics, the virus can mutate. It can build up its own resistance and change to adapt, etc. It may be something new, never seen before. So again, much of this that is science, etc., also involves art. It's a guesswork. Because again, you're fooling with a living organism. It's a living organism. And like you, it wants to survive. It wants to live. Life wants to live. And therefore, it will adapt. With this foreign virus thing, they were then talking about various mutations or various things like that to give you another shot so that Pfizer can have more money and all that sort of stuff. Okay. Well, let's say that was correct. Okay. We all say, oh, yes, we know that happens. Oh, yes. Well, let's see what this is. What do we have to do? Every time you go, it's going to be coming up, you have to run to the pharmacist or whatever to get your flu shot. Why? This strain is different than last year's, naturally. So you have to go to the drugstore and get plugged in the arm or whatever people get to get this thing. So we understand that. But again, if I see this and I have no idea what to call this, I describe it. It's a kind of oblong, upright thing. It's kind of rectangular, I guess. Wood. And there's some metal here. Yeah, these are, well, I know what that is. That's a screw, kind of nail, that's in there. And it has this coating on top. And you tell me, yeah, that's varnish. Oh, okay. Yeah, that kind of seals it, protects it. Okay. So now I know that. But I still don't have a name for this thing. Still don't know what it is. Say, well, we call that a podium. There are other names for it, but a podium. Oh, okay. So when I see this again, in this kind of configuration, even if it's not exactly like this, my mind is able to conform to this and say it is a podium. Because I can have a podium of a different configuration, a different wood, a different varnish. Some may have a design on the front. Some may have nothing. It may be whatever it is. So cause is very important in terms of knowledge. And knowledge then gives you some degree of understanding, and it also can give you a certain degree of control. Now, Mr. Sanders used an example of the table and the cookies. So I'm going to leave those aside. Those are kind of self-evident, what he's saying. I mean, I don't think anybody has any problem understanding what he said. I thought it was very well presented, very simple, and those are the best examples, simple examples. Okay, very simple example in which you saw and picked up almost intuitively. In fact, one person even anticipated where he was going. Okay? Why? Because it was presented logically in that order. No one had to say that. The mind went with it. See? Okay. Now, you have the formal cause, material cause, the efficient cause, and the final cause. Okay? And these are the causes that Mr. Sanders laid out for you very easily. Now, if we move out of the realm of cookies and tables, or podiums, or books, etc., and we move into the area, let's say, of of human living, daily life, of human being. We have to make a distinction that's fundamental to classical philosophy, classical morality, Catholic morality, Catholic teaching, Catholic philosophy, and Catholic ethics. What we're talking about in terms of living is the act. The act. Now right there, act, to say act, that's what we call a formal concept. Why is it a formal concept? It's a formal concept because it has no content. You see that? It's formal. Because your question would be, logically, I think, well, what is the act? Yes, no? See? If I say, oh, well, take this act, and I don't say anything beyond that. You say, well, what act are you talking about? But I can talk about an act in a formal sense. It's an act without content. It is an entity without content. When men get dressed up and ladies get dressed up to go to a party or a swank kind of place, what often do they put on the invitation? Formal attire. Formal attire. In other words, we don't want you to stand out. We don't want you to do that. Then there is a standard dress. And if you come looking like you fell off the beach, you are unseemly. You don't fit the occasion for which the event is taking place. That's a very important word. We don't use it anymore. Anyway, unseemly. Unseemly means that which does not fit the event for which one is participating. Seemly means to be appropriate to the event taking place. So you show up in a tuxedo, or the ladies show up in an evening gown, etc., or whatever they do. Anyway, so the act is formal. When I give content to the act, I then make it specific. Okay? So the act is formal. It is now. In talking about act or formal, often designated as X, is X, meaning whatever. It's unknown. Huh? In math, the X factor. The X factor is the unknown factor. Okay, because I haven't said anything about it. It's talking about an act. I talk about two kinds of acts in the moral realm. In the moral realm. The act of man and the human act. The act of man and the human act. The act of man is an act that we share because we are animals, and therefore we we share these acts with animals, that is, the non-human animal. We may also share some of that with the vegetative dimensions of things. What is an act of man? Eating, breathing, etc. All of those basically are what we might call involuntary. They're part of the automatic system, as long as you're existing now, of course. But it's something that we share. In other words, they can also be instinctual. And as much as we may not like to admit it, although it's pretty hard if you look at the news and read the paper, much of human behavior is instinctually driven. Instinctually driven. So a human act, an act of man, is an instinctual kind of involuntary act which by its nature tends to be morally neutral. Morally neutral. Breathing is a morally neutral act. It's also an act that if you try to, like the child who says, I'm going to hold my breath till you give me my way. Well, at some point the child will pass out, but the child will start breathing again. So parents need not worry that the child will croak, because the little tyrant won't. And it might be good for him, you see, to have that happen. And so, every 2-year-old is a tyrant. Everybody knows that, except some 2-year-olds are 55 and 60 and 70. That's the problem. You meet them every day. So it's a neutral act. We don't say breathing is moral or immoral. Try not to do it, and again, it's going to take over. It's going to take over. Instincts are kind of automatic. They're built in to the very being of the person. And they're not moral issues. They're not moral issues, etc. in and of themselves. When you come to a human act, this is where the question of morality enters the picture. Because this has to do with intellect and free will. It has to do with knowledge in terms of the intellect, free will in terms of choice, decision making, etc. Now, so a human act is an act then for which one is responsible. Either if one is to be praised for it, it is called what? Very good. It is a virtuous act. If it is not, it is called what? Yes, the opposite of virtue is vice. Very good. Vice. Virtue or vice. Of which one is responsible in the choice based, and the degree of culpability. The degree of responsibility is culpability. Okay, same thing. Is depending upon the degree of knowledge and the degree of choice. Because the other component that comes into it is that of circumstances. Circumstance. You remember several decades ago, all of you in here are old enough, well, maybe not you, are old enough to remember the case of Patty Hearst in the Symbionese Liberation Army. And there was a raging debate, still goes on, as to whether or not she should be guilty of robbing and doing all of those things with the Symbionese Liberation Army. Was she coerced to the point, brainwashed? Was she threatened to a point where the capacity for a free choice is so reduced or so limited or infringed upon that either no guilt in the subjective sense, again, I hope I made that clear last week, I probably did not. The act and its responsibility, there is an objective element and there is a subjective. The objective element has to do with the act itself. In other words, its whatness. Another word for this is its materiality. You say, well, how can an act have materiality? Well, of course it does. I want to know what was done. This lady leaves to go to the bathroom. Okay? And while she's gone, I see this, whatever this thing is here, this green thing. And I like it very much. It fits my need. So while she's in the bathroom, I take it, like I'm looking at it, and I put it in the suitcase over there, the valise, whatever that thing is. And I put it there. And she comes back and she says, I thought I brought this notebook or this pen, note taker, whatever. Did you see it? No, I didn't see it. No? Don't know where it is. And all of you, because I have pictures on you, you become complicit in my thievery. Okay? Now, what's the materiality of the act? Materiality of the act is very simple. I came here, I picked up this thing, I took and I put it there. That's the materiality of the act. Now, that's the whatness. I took this thing. Notice, please, there is no moral valence there. There is no moral responsibility there. I took it. Taking it in and of itself is not a moral or immoral act. It's not. Why not? Because she may have told me previously that I could take it and look at it that you don't know about. Well, O's not good. And notice, well, that's wrong. Well, you don't know that it's wrong, do you? Not by the simple taking of this thing. All I did, what did he do? Now, that's what I did. But, in the process as it unfolds, the question then becomes how or what is the valence of the particular act that I did. And by her asking, where is my book? And I say, I don't know, I didn't see it. It then becomes either moral or immoral. And it becomes immoral if I know that it's not mine. I know it. I know it belongs to her. I know it doesn't belong to me. My intent is to take it. And I know it doesn't belong to me. No one is forcing me to take that thing there. I'm taking it because I want it. It's a complete act of my naked will. I want it. She's got it. I want it. I'm taking it. Here's the occasion. I know it's wrong. I freely do it. I have the intent. I have the means and the circumstance. And I took it. And furthermore, I compound it by saying what? I don't know. So I compound it by lying. So all of that then leads me to say, objectively, the act is wrong. Now stay here because, it's amazing to me always that Christians, especially Catholics, whenever you bring this up, Catholics want to assign people to hell so fast. They do. It's an amazing thing. Jesus Christ came to save everybody, and Catholics come to put them all in hell. Think about that. It's the most amazing thing in the world. Objectively, it's wrong. Objectively, it's wrong. So all you Vice Squad people, you got it. It's wrong. It's wrong. Now, we come here. Here's the tricky part. Guilty or not guilty? Now, before I said, I know, I chose, I want it, I lied, I did all of that. Well, that's pretty strong for me to say what? Guilty or not guilty? Guilty. But on closer inspection, you find out that the individual is a cuckoo bird. Is nuts. Okay? Which one what? Which one of us? Oh, I think we have a flock. No, we don't. So we come here and on the face of it, prima facie, on the face of it, guilty. Guilty. Is the person guilty in the objective order of having committed an act that is wrong? Yes, the person is guilty, even though the person is off their rocker and everything else. But with the circumstances, it is mitigated. It is mitigated. The guilt that can be attributed to that person, to where it's practically non-existent or non-existent at all. What remains wrong is the material act. The act is wrong. That's in the objective order. It's objectively wrong for me to take that which does not belong to me. That's wrong. Jesus said, by your fruits you shall know them. First letter of John. Test them by the spirits, not everyone who says, Lord, Lord. See? Now, I can't judge another person's subjective state. I don't know what's in your heart. I don't know the degree of culpability. I don't know any of those things that may impair. I don't know that. What can I judge? I can judge your behavior. Well, I can judge your behavior. You know, that's why when Pope Francis said, who am I to judge? Oh, everybody went crazy. Why? Because they don't understand. And besides, many of them who said that do not like the Pope. So naturally, in great Christian charity, they naturally became catfish and swam to the bottom. Huh? That's what they did. When he said, who am I to judge? He was talking about this. I am not in a position to judge you in terms of the disposition of your soul in relation to Almighty God. That's a pay grade higher than mine. And the Pope's, by the way. What I can judge is your objective behavior. Your objective behavior. And we do that. We do that in our daily life. We have people who are, let's say, who have certain emotional, certain cognitive things together that cause them to either say things or act in an involuntary way. An involuntary way. Okay? Now, we may tell people before they come, like if we're going to have a family gathering, and we don't want to exclude this person, especially if it's a child or a relative or something like that. So look, don't pay too much attention. Just let it go, because the person has this certain illness. And most people who are invited say, okay. And they may say some really outlandish things. Many times it's expressed in terms of ethnic slurs. Well, you greasy dagos, you here again? Okay, all right. That sometimes happens. And then they start talking about, oh, could I have the roast beef or this or that? It's an involuntary thing. It happens. The wiring is not correct. All right. We make allowances for that. We prepare people for it, and most people, if they have any sense of understanding or compassion towards someone, okay, we ignore it. And then the person just goes on as if nothing was said. Why? Because it didn't register. Why? Because it's an instinctual reflex that's in the miswiring of themselves, that there's no intent to what? There's no intent to insult or hurt another person. That's not their intent. They probably don't even remember 2 seconds later what they said. They didn't even register what they said. There's one of the great theologians, how we could use him today. Oh my God. Great theologians of the 20th century. The great Father John Courtney Murray, Jesuit priest. One of the chief architects of one of the great documents of the Second Vatican Council on religious freedom. John Courtney Murray said, only a gentleman can insult you on purpose. Think about it. Only a gentleman can insult you on purpose. Why is that? Why? Why can only a gentleman insult you on purpose? Why? No. Think about it. Why can only a gentleman? What is a gentleman? What is a gentleman? Which means they know what? Which means they, well, what do they know? They know etiquette. They know proper behavior. Okay. Does an uncouth, uncivilized kind of person know that? No. No. So only a person who knows something can offend you by wanting to offend you because they know that it will offend you because they have that knowledge. How many times does somebody say something to you that offends you? And they say, oh, gee, and you may say something, well, that really hurt me. Or what would make you say something like that? And they say, oh look, I'm sorry, I didn't, this is what I meant. Well, most of us believe that because it's true. But they were what? They were ignorant that what they had said offended you or hurt you, etc. But then there are those who can say the very same thing, and you know that they meant to hurt you. See, because they knew where to hit you. They knew where to hit you. That's always the danger of love, isn't it? Because lovers know where the other person's vulnerable spots are. Okay? That's always the risk. It's always the risk. You know, the armadillo doesn't want to turn over because of its belly. It's soft, underpinning. The shell is hard. So we look at this and we realize that this is where we can judge. This calls for us to be very, very prudent and cautious in terms of imputing guilt or responsibility to a person. You need to know a great deal more. Often in a court of law, before a person is sentenced, what do they do? What does the judge ask for? But what else from the state? I mean, something more than character witness. I mean, what does he direct? Well, yeah, but what? He wants a what? Yeah. He turns it over to whom before sentencing? The verdict is rendered. The person is guilty. Now, what does the judge ask for? No, yeah, but no. What is the judge asking for officially in order to help him make his decision? Not all the blabbing. Okay, that's right. In other words, he's asking for an assessment by the Department of Corrections, the parole board, the parole or the people that watch over you, and that Department of Corrections. They want to know the background of the person, the education, what's their prior record. They want to know all of that, leaving aside all of these statements that are made, you know, which are so filled with emotion and everything else like that. But okay. But what are the facts? What is it about this person that can help me to understand that somebody who's 16 years old and a first-time offender is not going to be treated like somebody who's 28 or 29 and is up here with a rap sheet as long as the highway? That's why they do it. Because we understand that there's different degrees of culpability. We don't treat a 5-year-old like we do the 15-year-old or the 10-year-old even, or somebody older. We may even say, take care of your little brother, to the one who may be 6 or 7 years old, and the little one is 2 or 3 years old, or 3 or 4 years old, etc. Okay, so this is very, very difficult. That's where what comes into play. The word conscience comes into play. Conscience is made up of 2 words, isn't it? Con, meaning with, science, scientia is what? What is the word? What is science, the Latin? Scientia. With knowledge. Conscience is with knowledge. Jesus says, I judge no man. Not the Pope, by the way. The Pope said that too. But since we don't like him, Jesus said, I judge no man. His conscience with knowledge. That's why for the Greek philosophers, what is the beginning of wisdom? What is it? Over the oracle at Delphi. Well, when you were reading all of these things way back, and I asked you to look them up, you know what I mean? Okay. No. What's that? No what? What did you say? Know thyself. Shakespeare, huh? Know thyself, and to thyself alone be true. Thou canst deceive no other man. You have to know yourself. There's 2 people you can never fool. Yourself and God. You can fool all kind of people. People do it every day. We do it. The word hypocrite. The word hypocrite is a word from the Greek plays, the Greek tragedies. Hypokrisis. The word itself means wearer of mask. A hypocrite is a wearer of mask. Why? Because in the Greek tragedies, the Greek plays, Socrates and those people, women were not allowed to take part in the plays, in the drama. Men took the parts and they put on women's masks, women's outfits. The hypocrite is one who wears a mask. Beneath that mask is the real person. Jesus calls the Pharisees hypocrites. They wear the mask. The mask of what? The mask of religion. The mask of piety. The mask of holiness. And all this kind of stuff. The symbols. All the scriptures that they mastered and learned all over the place. The places of honor. And Jesus says, but inside they're full of dead men's bones. They're whited sepulchres. All nice and beautiful outside. Inside they're corrupt. That's Jesus. Read, sweet little loving Jesus that everybody likes, Jesus loves me, this I know. The Bible told me so. Well, go read those passages. Jesus' harshest words are for those who are self-righteous and mask wearers. Never for sinners. Never for the prostitutes, the harlots, the outcasts, the publicans, the tax collectors. Just the opposite. Not for the publican in the back who says, have mercy on me, God, I'm a sinner. Now what more do you want to do with that? One thing only. Forgive and show mercy. Because that person is not lying. The Pharisee in the front is saying, I thank God I'm not like everybody else. I give taxes, I pay this, I do that, I do all these wonderful things. And I'm certainly not like that one in the back. And Jesus says, I tell you, the publican went home, the publican went home justified. The Pharisee did not. In other words, the Pharisee's prayer was not heard because he was a liar. The publican, have mercy on me, I'm a sinner. I'm a mess. I got it all messed up. God works with that. How do you work with somebody who thanks God he's not like everybody else? And he's wonderful and terrific, and his bag is full of all his trophies and virtues. And God says, how do I work with that? There's no room for me in there. That's why the crib is empty and the cross is vacant before Good Friday and before Christmas. It's covered up. Okay. So we have to have this conscience. Now, in saying that about conscience, know thyself with knowledge, which means, by the way, correctly formed. So many people want today to say, I'm just following my conscience. Well, by the way, your conscience is corrupt. It's not properly formed. It's not enough to say, I'm following my conscience, period. No. It should be this. ... To be continued. How is your conscience formed? Who formed your conscience? What is it? By what knowledge of this? Where did this conscience get formed? Was it formed by the gang? Was it formed by commercial television? Was it conformed by this particular group? Was it formed by the Catholic Church according to the teachings of the Church? It's very important. It's not enough to say I'm following my conscience, period. No, I'm sorry. That's just the beginning of the conversation. It's how is your conscience formed? Who's forming it? Were you receptive to being formed? Were you receptive to it? There are many people who, they can give you the Bible, they can give you the Catechism, they can do all this kind of stuff, everything. They tell you all that stuff. It's just a matter of kind of an intellectual knowing, stuff like that. That's all it is. But it has absolutely nothing to do with their conduct or their decisions that they make in terms of right and wrong. Right and wrong. You see? That was the Pharisees. They wore their religion. Exterior. It was an armor. It was a protection against anything that came in or anything from above. My conscience told me this. Your conscience was wrong. It's incorrectly formed. With knowledge. With knowledge means the truth. The truth. And the truth will set you free. The truth will set you free, as Jesus said. If not, then you're living a lie. And lies eventually collapse. There's a great book out Um, I mean, it's one of the best books I've ever read. It's called The Pope and the President. And the Pope is John Paul II, and the President is Ronald Reagan. And this book had gained access to, with permission, from all of the archives of the Vatican in terms of the correspondence and notes that were kept between Reagan, John Paul, Gorbachev, and Margaret Thatcher. Those four. Yeah. It's one of the most amazing books I've ever read. And, for example, Ronald Reagan, who was Protestant, he was so fascinated to hear the Pope talk about the Blessed Mother. He couldn't get enough of hearing about the Blessed Mother. Fascinated by it. Want to know everything about it. Mikhail Gorbachev was in many ways a closet Christian, a closet Catholic. His wife, Reza, was one of the most hateful people. She could not stand the Catholic Church, hated the Catholic Church. She was a professor at Moscow University. Taught courses on atheism and led all of the oppression, especially of the Catholic Church, of any form of religion, but especially the Catholic Church. And a couple of years ago, not that long ago, they had the memorial of St. Francis of Assisi. Still have a beautiful monastery there in Assisi. Beautiful monastery. And it's still staffed by the monks, by the Franciscans, by the way. And they have many visitors that come and look at it there. It's a beautiful place. And it was on the Feast of St. Francis. You know, you bless all the animals. I was given the task of blessing the animals. And one of the ladies there had her dog to be blessed. And she said to me, "Oh, Father," you know, one of those. And she says, "I want to know, is it going to be dangerous for my dog to be there? And do you have something to make sure my dog is protected?" Knowing that was coming, because I have done this before, I took out my little spray, and I said, "Yes, you see this?" I said, "This is spray." I said, "But it's spray for owners, because the owners are worse than the dogs and the animals." I said, "All of the trouble goes right back to the owners of the animal. If we left the animals alone, they would be fine. It's the owners that are. So when an owner acts up, I spray them with this." She reported me to the pastor. Another part of my sordid past, but anyway. So needless to say, next year I was not asked to bless the animal. But anyway. So we have to, in spite of all that foolishness, we want to have our conscience correctly formed. And just one little example here. Whether or not one is to cheat on one's spouse. Whether or not one is to cheat on one's spouse. Okay. And one has before one And you can say the husband or the wife, take your pick. We're being gender neutral here, okay? My contribution to modernity. And you can be faithful or you can be an infidel to your marital promises. And you have before you an opportunity, a situation, be it an office, a party, a cocktail lounge, a chance meeting, whatever. You have an opportunity because X person, male or female, indicates that they are willing to engage in this kind of behavior. And you are faced with this. Now, what is the material cause? Explain, please. Yes. What do you mean the opportunity? Okay, what suggested what? Okay. It's the whatness. And the whatness is in terms of its essence, its being. And its being relates to what? There's the choice. There you go. That's your choice. Now, what is the formal cause? What is the formal cause that the individual confronts? What is the formal cause? What is the state of being of the person who's being propositioned? What is their state? What is their state? No. Think of it they are married. Very good. That's right. They're married. That's their state. Okay? That's their state. They're married. Okay? Now, part of being married is what? Being faithful, exclusive, committed, so on and so forth like this. Okay. So, the formal cause is the state, the marriage state, which itself causes and brings about the need for making a choice. What is the efficient cause? No. What is an efficient cause? Very good. Yes, the efficient cause is the one who is responsible for the effect. One that is responsible for the effect, and one that is responsible for the what? What precedes the effect? What precedes an effect? What precedes the effect? In order to have an effect, you have to have a prior what? Folks, if you have an effect, you have to have a cause. What is the cause? Who is the cause? Who is the cause?
The person who's making the decision.
No.
One of the spouses is the cause.
No. Who is the efficient cause of the first instance? The one who does what? No. What? Makes the proposition. The person who makes the proposition. They are going to bring about, but the effect then lies with whom? Very good. The response. What is the final cause?
Choose to be true to your vows or not.
That's correct. It's the outcome. The final cause is the end. Thanks, I'm flattered, but no thanks, I'm married. Or, okay, baby, I'll meet you at 9. Or whatever. That's the final cause. That's the final cause. Okay. So, in looking at this, we can see that in looking at human acts, not acts of man, but if we look at human acts, there's quite a web of complexity that goes here in analyzing and judging, first and foremost, ourselves, our own behavior. St. Augustine said, I am a mystery unto myself, which is amazing when we think about it, about judging other people. How many times in the course of a day or a week or whatever do we say, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I did that. I don't know what came over me. Yet we know everybody, we know everything about everybody else. We know about their motivation. We know about their limitations. We know about their gifts, their graces, their liabilities. We know all of these things. It's an amazing thing. But not when it comes to ourselves. When we really think about it, we'd like to say, I know myself. Well, if that's true, if you do indeed know yourself, then you can't hide behind a lack of responsibility because I didn't know. Because that's what the Pharisees did. Remember chapter 6 of John's Gospel? When they talk about the sonship of Jesus. And the Pharisees really get down and dirty. You know, it doesn't appear to many people because they don't get it. But if you look at chapter 6, the Pharisee says to Jesus, because Jesus is talking about, he came to do the will of the Father. Came to do the will of the Father. That's why he came. And the Pharisees say, we know who our Father is. What are they saying to Jesus?
They know who his is, and they talk to him, he has no way.
What are they saying about Joseph and Mary, please? They're the mother and the father, but they're not what? No. Think in human terms, please. Stop running upstairs. You spiritual people, all everything spiritual. Stop it. What are they saying? This is a very sly and very, very, very really disgusting insult.
But they're not really near.
Very good. We know who our Father is. Go back, come on, folks. Go back to the whole thing of how was Jesus conceived? Huh? Yes, by the Holy Spirit. Not Joseph. Not Joseph. Joseph has never referred to Jesus as his father. Except one time. And that's in the temple when they find Jesus and Mary's all exasperated and says, don't you know you've upset your father and me? It's the only time she seems to recognize that he's there when it comes time to let Jesus have it. And she says, your father and me. Oh, but up until then, it's Mary. You know, quite contrary. Anyway, so we see that they say, we know who our Father is, which means, Jesus, you're a bastard. You're out of wedlock. Bastard is not a dirty word, okay? Please. It has to do with the condition of a person who is conceived and born with parents who are not married, okay? Is not legitimate. That word I hate. There's no child illegitimate. Child is born, he's loved by God, and so on. Never. But anyway, leaving that all aside. The idea being that the rumors have been going around. You're in a small village here, huh? A small town, if we can find any. Okay, small little hamlet someplace, tucked away. I have no idea where they are, but okay. And you know how fast things fly, huh? That are usually wrong, embroidered, and all of that kind of stuff. So, no doubt, the whispering campaign started. You know that. I mean, Jesus is 33 years old now. I mean, so this has been going on. And the Pharisees have always been looking for something to discredit Jesus about. What better than to have this guy running around, this itinerant preacher, who has no credentials. He's never been in a real first-class synagogue or studied under any of the great Talmud rabbis. But yet, look at all these crowds following him. Oh, God, how are we going to stop this? He's illegitimate. Not only is he illegitimate in terms of what he's claiming, he's illegitimate from his very origin. And you're going to tell me that this is the Messiah who came from these two, and we've heard about those parents. We know. Yeah, we know. And Jesus says, in claiming that you know and that you have knowledge, you have convicted yourself. You have no excuse. Because if you really knew, you would know I am the Son of God. But it's not that you don't know, it's that your will is so corrupt that you will not accept it. The corruption is in the will. See? And we're going to see this with Socrates. This is one of the great flaws in Socrates and many of the Greek philosophers. This idea of intellect and will. For Socrates, no one ever knowingly commits a bad act. No one ever knowingly commits a bad act. So there's no such thing as a bad act, knowingly committed. Now all of us would find exception to that. And Socrates would say, well, if the person really knew the act, if the person really knew or had the evil exposed or the wrong that was exposed, they would never have chosen it. So therefore, their intellect was impaired to the point where they didn't really know it. So therefore, no one properly knowing or correctly formed or informed would choose that. That's what he would say. Because for him, knowledge is virtue. For Socrates, knowledge is virtue. His whole life is about knowledge and truth. And so therefore, because remember, without getting too metaphysical, metaphysically, there really is no such thing as an evil act. There is no such thing as an evil act. And the reason we say that, there's no such thing as an evil act is because evil is an absence of the good. Evil is a deficiency. When I say something is, I'm not even going to ask questions about it. It is, I surrender. It comes from esse, meaning to be. It has being. It has existence. Evil in its pure form does not have existence. Evil in its pure form is non-being. Now, I'll see if I can remove the glazed donut look from your eyes. What is a lie? Not the absence of truth. It's the absence of. Yes, no, I'm just pointing to the board. It's the absence of truth. It's the absence of telling the truth. It's a deficiency. What is stealing? The absence of honesty. See, sin is the absence. It is a deficiency. It's a lack of being. Goodness is being. What do we call God? The what? What kind of being? Supreme being. The supreme being. We call it totus bonum. And the supremium bonum. God is not only the total good, he is the supremacy of all goods. He's not just all goods. That's fine to have them all. You need them all. But they can't simply be all in terms of quantity. They have to be qualitatively, not simply quantified, but qualitatively. They have to be the supreme good. Supreme good. You have some good. Let's say, I'm sorry. Here I am on this man who did such a wonderful job. Let's say Mr. Sanders gave a very fine presentation, a good presentation. That's true. It's true. Yes. Okay. Was it the total good? Was it the total of goods dealing with the topic? No. Of course not. Was it the supreme best total? No. And no human being could do that, because that can only reside in God, who is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. That's why God is all of those things. Because in God is, remember we said, God is the being. God's being is God's essence. God's being is God's essence. Why? Because God is the fullness of being. That's why we say, as this gentleman said, the supreme being. He is supreme, because in God there is no actuality. In God everything is realized. As long as you have potential, you are deficient to some degree. Correct? I mean, if I say, oh, you have a lot of potential, well, it means you have it. There's part of you that hasn't been actualized for whatever reason. But if I say, oh, that was your best and it was great. It was great. Okay. My evaluation is that this person has done the level best that they can, and they say, I left it all out on the court today. I gave it everything I had. Win or lose, I know I can walk off the court all right. Why? Because I had nothing else to give. That's it. I'm exhausted. I'm out of it. Okay. And that is the fullness of what that person could do. But they lost the game. They lost the game. But at one level, that's supremely okay. Then to know, well, I had a little more I could have given, but I didn't want to fool with it anymore. I just got tired of it, etc. I didn't want to fool with it. I know that. I'm deficient. I had that potential, but I didn't actualize it. I didn't actualize it. See? And the couple of years ago, seminarians, Brother Kyle will tell you because he was on the team. Seminarians asked me to coach their basketball team because they wanted to enter the intramural college city tournament, sponsored by Loyola, Tulane, Xavier, Dillard, places like that. So I said, okay. I said, but again, like Bobby Knight, don't listen how I say it, listen to what I say, and you'll be a better basketball player. So I only had seven guys. I only had 7 guys. And by listening and by doing what we said, we got to the championship game playing Loyola, at Loyola. And the night before, to get into the game, we were down by 1 point, and there were 10, 12 seconds left. Called timeout, got the team, called to play. Okay, double screen at the top, flash to the outside, fake the shot and pass it to the corner and let him shoot. Double screen at the top, passes it out, shoots, boom, we win by 1 point. Therefore, we're playing Loyola for the championship. Following night. Brother Kyle was on the team. He's on the team. I will tell you. And that night, it comes down the same situation. We're down by 1. And there's about 8 seconds left. And I said they're going to look for the double screen at the top, pass into the corner, etc. We ain't doing that. What I want you to do, you have enough time. You have enough time. We want a single screen at the top. Pass it in, because they're going to look for you to go to the goal and get fouled, or make it so you're probably going to get fouled. But I don't want you to get fouled, because you can't make foul shots. So forget that. Okay, this is what I want you to do. Well, I mean, he can't. He couldn't. A mess. So pass the ball in, gives it into the post. He turns like he's going. He flips the ball to the outside to the guy who the previous night made the basket. The guy's about 12 feet, maybe a little more, up in there. He makes it, we win. He shoots a brick off the backboard. A brick. I'm surprised he touched the goal. We lost. Find out a week later that the guy who shot the ball missed it on purpose, because there was an activity that their diocese was having to go out with somebody to eat, and they didn't want to miss that, and they were hoping the game would be over and all of this, and he played subpar, and he missed the thing because it went longer, because the consolation game went longer. And so he missed it on purpose. See? Now, I spent a lot of time calming down people because they wanted to deal street justice to this person, which not a good idea. Especially, no, anyway, you get the idea. And, okay, in that particular instance, that person has to live with that, in my opinion. In my opinion. Having played sports all my life, I hated losing more than I like winning. The reason being I expect to win. I don't go out there expecting to lose. I expect to win. And so I'm not surprised when I win. I hate when I lose. And, this particular person, and I never said a word to him about it. Never did. And he never came and apologized or anything like that. Never did. Okay, that's fine. And it wasn't for the Kyle, by the way. So please don't go around with that, huh? God. But these are the things that are important in terms of causes, morality, and the virtues. And we're going to get into the virtues. What time is it, Miss Betty? 8:45. Okay. Doggone it. All right. Okay. Well, what I want you to do then, because I don't care what happens next time, I'm going to do it. I promise. But I would like you to please, if you would, please look over, read, study, whatever. I'm really wishing I know. If you would look at, okay, it's Article 7, 1803. It deals with the virtues. Now, it lists there for you, they're calling it the human virtues. These are virtues, by way of background. The human virtues are referred to in classical philosophy and in medieval philosophy. They're called the acquired virtues. They're acquired. That is, they're acquired through practice. Think of virtues, and we'll talk about it next time, because we've got to get into this. The virtues are skills. Virtues are skills. And they are mastered by repetitive behavior. And they also require the importance of having oneself living in and associated with a virtuous community. That's the only way you learn. You will not learn virtues running around with the Bloods of the Crips. Okay? You have to, because we learn it from, I hate the expression, role models. Because role models is one of these sociological kind of things and so on and so forth. What we need are disclosure models. Disclosure models. They disclose the virtues. And it must begin in the home. The home is the first of the moral communities that a person has. It's not the school, it's not the parish, it's not this or that, it's not some, I don't know, life coach and all of these other kind of things that these children have to put up with. It begins in the home with the parents. They are disclosure models. How does one learn without having a disclosure model? They can't. They're going to learn. And the question is, who are they going to model? That's the question. And virtues come through practice, repetition. How do you get to be, you know the old story, the old thing. This guy was visiting New York. And he loved music. He was in New York. And his first time there, and he's walking around the streets of New York, Manhattan, looking all over the place like this. And he says, and this guy looked like he came up upon somebody who looked like he was a native New Yorker. So he says, oh, excuse me, could you tell me how I get to Carnegie Hall? He says, yeah, practice, man, practice. You know, well, the same thing is true of virtue. You know, how do you get the virtue? You practice them. How do you get vice? You practice them. And it's by, you know, by birds of a feather and by your friends, I'll tell you who and what you are. See, parents used to say, don't go with that kid. Stay away from that gang. Why? They were good Aristotelians and Socratic, they were telling you. Now, of course, you can't do that. That's in the range of brutality and limiting freedom and all these other kind of self-discovery things that young people have to do on the way to the juvenile hall. But anyway, so virtues, these are the human virtues. They're acquired, and they're acquired through practice. And they are the intellectual and moral virtues. So it's something you gain for yourself. The second set of virtues, which is not talked about, obviously, by Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. They don't know anything about Jesus, nothing about the church, nothing about revelation, and all this other sort of stuff. So forget all that for a moment. That's an addition by Aquinas, by Augustine, and by the great church fathers, and has endured throughout the history, down to today, of Catholic moral theology. It is called the infused virtues. Infused. Infused is something that you do not gain on your own, but they are gifts from the outside. To infuse something is to inject something into something that in and of itself it does not have by itself. So the infused virtues are the gifts referred to in your catechism and so on as the theological virtues, the faith, hope, and charity. We have to see what that means. So you have the cardinal or the acquired virtues. First is prudence, courage, fortitude, and temperance. Those are the four cardinal virtues. The word cardinal is an interesting word. The word cardinal comes from the Latin, and it means hinge. Hinge. You know, a hinge. The hinge. You say, well, what does that have to do with anything? The hinge holds the door that allows you to go in. The cardinal virtues are that which holds your character or your moral identity and reveals who and what you are. It's a hinge virtue. It's crucial for holding up character. Good or bad, by the way. Good or bad. It's not just good, because we have some bad characters. So it's good and bad. Okay. Those are the cardinal virtues, and the first of those is prudence, without which you can have no other virtue. You do not have prudence, and we're going to talk about what prudence is. If you don't have prudence, you have no other virtue. It's impossible. That's why it's called the chief of the cardinal virtues, or the first of the cardinal virtues. Prima, first. You have the theological virtues, faith, hope, and charity. They are infused because they are gifts. They come from outside the person. They are not merited. The cardinal virtues are merited. You practice them. You do all that's required. Just like you get to be a great tennis player by getting out on the court and playing tennis and practicing. So what have you become? You become a great tennis player. Yes, that's an achievement. That's something you should be proud of. Earned achievement is not pride. It's something to be proud of because you've been able to master a skill, which required discipline, dedication, all of those things. However, with the infused virtues or the theological virtues, those are gifts from God that come from God and is given. It's infused into the soul, into the soul. However, one can refuse them. You can refuse to be infused. Now, if that confuses you, then I don't know what else to say other than to confuse you further. The reason you can refuse the infused is because of a little thing called freedom. Freedom. Jesus says to the rich young man, there is one thing lacking. Go sell what you have, give to the poor, and follow me. He goes away sad, he has many possessions. This is my body, this is my blood. Many found this a hard saying and could not accept it. Many chose to be in his company no longer. Chapter 6, the bread of life gives. I'm not available. If that's God, tell him, put him on hold or take a message. I'm almost finished. I'm going to stop, I promise. But I want you to have this. I want you to have this background. So that's an infused. But by the fact that it's infused does not mean that it's forced. God does not coerce. Because if God forced those on you, you would not be free. You would not be free. And if you're not free, then you cease to be a human being in the full sense of the term. And if you give up your freedom, you're giving up the very image and likeness of God in which you are made. That's why it's terrible to surrender your freedom, because that's what sin does. Sin has as its goal the taking of your freedom. That's why Jesus always uses sin and slavery together. A person who is a slave to sin is a slave indeed. The words of Jesus. Sin is bondage. That's what it is. So then the final step in this, finally, and we'll go into it, are the gifts of the Holy Spirit and the fruits of the Holy Spirit. And those are delineated by St. Paul. Delineated by St. Paul. And when you look at the Catechism, I know you will, in those few pages, if you would, please, please, please. 103, and as you can see, the virtues, grace, faith, hope, charity. And then you have, on 1830, the gifts and fruits of the Holy Spirit, right? 1830, does everyone see that? Yeah. And you have that there. And it's always good to look at the bottom, to the footnotes. I know a lot of people don't do that, unfortunately, but for the Catechism, it's indispensable, because they give you all the citations. And it's delineated there for you. And Galatians and Romans. And you begin to see them somewhat even. And also, if you notice, it also gives you what is, and this was very important to Pope John Paul, that one have the ressourcement of the sources. Notice Augustine, Basil, then you'll have Thomas Aquinas, Gregory, Cyril of Jerusalem, bringing you back to the great church fathers. And you can look those up and see them. And in the back of your catechism, you have a whole presentation on the various abbreviations and designations that they have there. You have a list of the ecclesiastical writers. You have the councils. You have the New Testament and all the scriptures there delineated for you in the back. It is a wonderful reference for you. And if you are looking for a particular title, you have a little definition in the glossary of the thing, along with the citation of where to go to look for it. So you need to befriend the book. And you also have, if you have a topic in large thing, you can look under the topic, for example, anyone you want to look at, but I'm looking at society, and you have a whole list of things here. And you have a whole list of little indications of what that section is about, and what those sections are, and where the citations are. So you have it all right there for you. Right there. All you have to do is again, befriend that. Look at that. If you want to, like, for example, virtue. In this particular one anyway. It's on page 903, but you have a gloss. It's not going to be in yours. But if you look in the back, if you look in the back of the book, back of the book, it has a glossary. And if you don't have you don't have one of these? Okay. You look virtue, and you see there under virtue, a habitual and firm disposition to do the good. The moral virtues are acquired through human effort, aided by God's grace. The theological virtues are gifts. See cardinal virtues, and you go to 1803. And you open it up to 1803, and by and whole, it's right there. It's right there. And it's even more documented in the index. The index is very, very good, plus all of the citations and documents and all of the things that are there for you. And it's a wonderful resource. And the more you use it, the less difficult it will seem and less frightening or less foreign to you if you use it. Tame the beast. Tame the beast. All right. So if you would look at that next time, because we want to take about the virtues, because we are going to talk about Socrates and the virtues, because that's really where it actually begins in any kind of really reflective, systematic kind of way. It begins with Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. That's the classical tradition of the virtues. You have a whole other tradition, granted, in the Romans, mainly with the Stoics. Now, Stoicism has made a tremendous comeback in recent years. I mean, there's tons of books being done every day on the meditations of Cicero, Marcus Aurelius, these people. A section a day, you can read a little snippet, almost like your prayer book, about Stoicism. And we're going to talk about Stoicism. Because Stoicism was one of the leading philosophies at the time and is enormously popular for many people today. Especially the philosophy of Stoicism speaks to our hectic, wired, exhausted, bone-tired, overloaded world. And it has struck a chord. It struck a chord, believe me. Those books are selling like anything today, those books. And the translations are very good, by the way. They've gotten top-flight translators for these books. And I'm not dismissing them. I'm not building them up to knock them down. There's value to them if we understand them as we understand the acquired virtues. That is something that can be added on to and has been by our Catholic tradition, by the Christian tradition. So it's an elevation. It's not an elimination of that. So if you have anything on Stoicism or any of these books, or somebody wants to give you one, it's worth reading. Marcus Aurelius, Cicero, especially Marcus Aurelius. Seneca's another one. Seneca's. Those are the three that are just great. Great. So anyway, all right. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Almighty and gracious God, we offer you glory, praise, and thanksgiving for your gift of this time together. Please open our minds and hearts to the truth, beauty, and goodness of your divine presence. Help us to know you more deeply so that we may love and serve you more deeply and serve others. Build up the body of Christ on earth, the church, by our daily lives of loving you and serving others. Please bless us in our going home